All right, everyone, let's get started today. I want to welcome you to the training on the rules and requirements of the Summer Food Service Program that you're using now to provide meals to students because your school has been closed related to the COVID-19 pandemic. And I am Katie Parch. I work at the Department of Education in the Office of Nutrition Services with the National School Meals and Summer Food Service Programs. And I've got a few team members with me here today. They're going to help answer some questions at the conclusion of training and try to man the chat box. So I want to bring that to your attention and make sure that you know that you can ask any questions you have throughout the training, and then we'll look at all of those questions and provide the best answers we have based on the information we know right now. We've been compiling all the questions from the other two webinar trainings we offered earlier this week, and we'll release those questions with their answers later tomorrow. Excuse me. I also want to let you know that we are recording this training and we'll be able to post it up on our website tomorrow as well. If you have other team members who you think would benefit from viewing the training, or if you want to go back to listen to it one more time, then it'll be available for that purpose as a resource to you, because we understand that this is a lot of change. The rules and regulations are similar, but there are some pretty significant differences between the school lunch program and the summer food service program. So just bringing your attention to the fact that we will make this resource available to you, but we also want you to know that we're all here to help answer your questions and get you started using this feeding option. You can reach us by email or phone, and I'll bring your attention to the page you can use to access our contact information if you don't have that information already. In case you're wondering where all of those training information and resources are housed, you will be able to click the link on the slide that you see here. The slides I'm covering today are already posted on this page. It would be the SFSP training PowerPoint, and below that you're going to see the many resources that you might need as you begin and continue operation to serve meals through this program. So all the forms you'll need and resources you'd need to refer to be able to operate the program successfully and within the program guidelines are going to be found on this page. We'll get started by talking about the two meal service options that are available through the Summer Food Service Program, including the open and closed enrolled site options. I'll take you through some hints and tips about the program application and claims. Then we'll cover a little bit about the meal pattern requirements. We'll touch on program costs and finish it up with a little bit about the monitoring requirements for you that are operating the Summer Food Service Program. These SFSP meals are intended to provide food to children, right? And we have been allowed the flexibility to offer these meals in a non-congregate way through June 30th, 2020. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. This program is not meant to provide meals to adults, however. This really is intended to reach the children who are enrolled in school, right, who are missing the school meal provided breakfast and lunch because schools have been dismissed or buildings have been closed. There are a few allowable meal combinations. The most common one is probably going to be a breakfast and a lunch, which is what most schools were serving during normal operation. Other allowable meal combinations in the SFSP include breakfast and supper, breakfast and a snack, or lunch and a snack. It is not allowable to serve lunch and supper or breakfast, lunch, and supper through the Summer Food Service Program. As I mentioned earlier, there are two types of SFSP sites. One of those is the open site operation, which is allowed to serve meals to all children ages 1 through 18 years. Schools with free or reduced meal price eligibility at or equal to, above or equal to 50% are allowed to use this option, okay? If a school does not have a monthly NSLP claim that documents that half of those students qualify for free or reduced price meals, Then we can look at what census data using the area eligibility map as a way to document open site eligibility, and we'll walk through that process in a few slides later. Using this operation, sites would utilize a daily meal count tally sheet to record the number of breakfast and lunch meals or whatever type of meals they're approved to operate. They're going to record those one by one. Open sites do not need to use a daily roster to record meal counts because through the SFSP, for sites operating in eligible areas where you've documented high need based on free or reduced price meal eligibility, all meals are reimbursed at the free rate of reimbursement. You do not utilize free, reduced, and paid meal eligibility categories. This is an example of what the daily meal count sheet looks like. And this sheet, this template is available on that forms and resources page that I showed you a few slides ago. We've modified this a little bit to be most useful to sites that are serving meals in a distribution style meal service. We understand that some sponsors or schools are trying to limit exposure or limit the number of times that students are interacting with food service staff. And we want to recognize that we made changes to accommodate that. So as you fill out this form, you could make a master sheet where you indicate the site name at the top, and then you're going to circle the appropriate meal type in the upper right corner. Make many copies of that. And then as you hand out meals, you would indicate which day or which days the meals you're handing out near the upper right corner as well. It could be single day meal count. If you're handing out meals each day, you would have one of these sheets for every day that you hand out or distribute meals. If you're distributing meals for 5 days at a time or 3 days at a time or 2 days at a time, you're going to indicate that in the dates section of the form near the upper right, okay? Every child who comes through the meal service line or whom you hand a meal to or distribute a meal to, you're going to mark a number. That's child 1, that's child 2, that's child 3, okay? The total number from section 2 right here with all of these numbers is going to go in letter B. In letter A, you're going to indicate how many meals were provided in each package given to the child. If you're distributing breakfast and lunch together at the same time for multiple days, you need to indicate, keep a separate form for each meal type. That's especially important because the reimbursement rates for each meal type is slightly different, and you're going to report total breakfasts, total lunches, or total snacks, whatever it might be that you're approved to serve. You're reporting those meal totals separately at the end of the month. So you need to be able to track accurately how many of each type of meal you served. Closed SFSP sites that are serving because of the COVID-19 pandemic must conduct a documented survey of all enrolled students, asking if they want to quote unquote enroll in meal service or enroll to receive a meal through the school. Respondents of those households must list each student that would like to participate if meal service is provided. Okay, it's required that at least half of the students who indicate they'd like to enroll to receive meals that they qualify for free or reduced price meals, okay? So if only 49% of your respondents qualify to receive a free or reduced price meal, then the summer food service program option is not one that you can utilize for meal service, and you should stick with the National School Lunch Program to distribute meals in a non-congregate fashion. The difference here is that if you are able to participate in the summer food service program by meeting the 50% free or reduced eligibility threshold, then all meals served to all students, regardless of meal price eligibility or meal benefit eligibility, are going to be claimed and reimbursed at the free rate of reimbursement. If a site does not reach the minimum 50% free or reduced eligibility threshold, they must continue serving meals through the school lunch program, and those meals must be documented or the meal claim needs to be submitted just in the same way that you do during the school year, where you indicate the number of meals you serve to children who qualify for free meals, reduced meals, and paid meals, each separately. You would use the closed enrolled site option if your school building's free or reduced eligibility is less than 50% based on a National School Meals Program claim, or if in addition to that, you're not being eligible based on the USDA eligibility map. And we will visit that here shortly, so you'll understand how that map is used and whether or not it indicates that you'll be eligible to operate a closed versus enrolled summer food service program site. These closed enrolled sites can allow younger children, the non-school age children, to receive meals. So if you have a school age student obviously enrolled in your school who qualifies for free or reduced price meals, you can extend that same benefit to the younger children in the household. As new students enroll to receive meals, because you might get some who initially are not interested, but later if the closure of the school extends for more days or weeks, you may have more students interested in receiving meals. You would simply add those to your daily meal count roster. And remember, all meals served in this fashion are going to be free to the students and reimbursed to the SFA at the free rate of reimbursement. The closed enrolled SFSP operations must complete a daily meal count using a roster, as I mentioned earlier. You have to indicate the name of every child who's enrolled to and receives meals through this type of operation. In the example that I show here, we've got down the left column at the top the name of the site and then list the names of the children. Excuse me. And then across the top, each day that meal service is offered is indicated along with the meal types. So make sure that your meal service, your daily count, your daily or whatever weekly roster includes all of this type of information. The other way we recognize that you might be serving meals is using the distribution method, and we discussed how to record those meals on the tally sheet if you're an open site, but we haven't looked at how to do that if you're a closed enrolled site and have to maintain a roster. So we recognize that you might be providing meals for up to 1 week at a time. As you can see across the top, I've indicated those time frames. The first week being March 23rd through March 27th. You fill in the child's name here. So we'll use my name as an example, Katie Parch. On Monday, I received 5 breakfasts and 5 lunch meals. That's the number you would record in each of those boxes next to my name. I want to bring your attention to the fact that sometimes if you have a week that includes 2 different claim months in it, you're going to need to separate your your weekly count rosters so that all of your March meals can be grouped and totaled together separately from all of your April meals. So a week like the one I've circled here would be one where you need to separate the meal counts before submitting the claim for reimbursement. Many of you have probably started the application process. You're probably somewhere in the middle of it. Maybe some of you have completed it. And even if you believe you're finished and you've submitted it for approval, we might have some helpful hints coming up for you that trigger you to think, oh, I might need to revise that portion of my application and submit it for approval again. In the site application or applications, depending on how many different sites you intend to offer, we wanted to show you that in number 22, if you have not operated the summer food service program or did not operate it in 2019, you must mark no to answer 22. But that will trigger the system to require you to put a date in number 25. Right now, the Department of Education is waiving the requirement to complete the pre-approval visit for SFAs that are in good standing, which all of you are. So with that guidance, we want to advise you to enter March 1st, 2020 in number 25 to indicate that's the day you completed a pre-approval visit Even though that visit is not required, this is the only way to get the system to accept your site application without producing an error message. We skip a few questions down to some specific information you'll need to provide for those of you that are eligible to operate open SFSP sites. So if you remember, we discussed that you can provide this supporting documentation or through access of school data to prove that half of your enrolled students are eligible for free or reduced price meals. The other option is using census data, so we'll take a look at that in a minute. I just want to make sure you know how to answer these questions accurately in order to avoid error messages that could hold up or delay the processing of your application. If you have school data to support that half of your students are eligible to receive free or reduced price meals, you're going to choose open in number 27, choose school data in number 28, and then for the second portion of 28, you're going to enter the month from which that claim is drawn, right? So if it's my December claim that documents I had 51% of the enrolled students eligible to receive a free or reduced price meal, then I'm going to enter 12/1/2019. We're not as concerned about the answer you provide in number 29. At this point, we could advise you to write other and then provide COVID-19 in the description section right below that. For number 30, you're going to indicate the school district name, the school building name, as you know, and then the free or reduced eligibility rate that corresponds with the month you indicated up here in 28. So again, these slides are available on the website. If you need to refer to this for hints and tips later as you're working your way through the application, please feel free to do that. Open sites are also able to operate as such using area eligibility if there is not a school meals claim to document that half of the students are eligible to receive free or reduced price meals. This tool may also be useful if you're operating non-school building sites and taking meals to a variety of locations across town in order to make access to meals as easy as possible for the children in your community. So I'll bring your attention to the USDA area eligibility map. On here, there's a search bar in the upper left corner of the map. And we'll work through how to use it. You would put in a specific street address, not just a town, and that will take you, it'll give you a point on the map, right? And if this is my point based on the street address I had entered in the search bar, I'm going to click on this little caret.
Yeah, that's okay.
And it's going to tell me what the GeoID is for that location. I'm going to copy this number, okay, and I will document if this would tell me census tract percentage of children eligible for free or reduced price meals is 50.5. Okay, I need to know this number, 50.5, as well as my GeoID. So I'm going to copy each of those codes. I'm going to go to my site application. I want to remind everyone to please mute your microphones. We can hear some of you talking in the background. I think it's a little bit distracting. Thank you. So I've copied my block number, the long number from the census map, and both of those numbers go here. I understand that the site application asks for separate numbers, but the way it's reported in the area eligibility map is they've kind of mashed the two numbers together. So that's the only number you need to provide. And then looking at that block of information that was provided, we could see what the percent eligibility of free reduced price meals was. So you're also going to record that number from the map information as in the bottom section right here. Okay. For those sites that are operating a closed enrolled operation, you must choose closed enrolled in a non-needy area. Then choose income applications as your eligibility method because schools have eligibility applications on file or they have direct certification information to document that each of the children enrolled in the program qualifies for free or reduced price meals. You've got some paid kids mixed in there too, right? And that's okay as long as at least half of them qualify for free or reduced price meals. If you choose closed enrolled in a non-needy area, the date in number 28 does not need to be filled in. You would indicate COVID-19 in the spaces available. And then based on the survey or the polling you've done of the families with children enrolled in your school, you'd indicate the total number of them that indicated they want to receive meals. Then you would tell us or report here below that the number of those that qualify for free or reduced price meals based on direct certification information and on paper application information. And then the system is going to calculate for you automatically what your free or reduced enrolled percentage is. Further down in the site application in the 40s and 50s, I've shown for you here what information you need to report for your breakfast and lunch meal service. Some of you may have chosen to serve a snack. You would see snack requiring the same information that we're looking at here. So anyway, make sure you're giving all the information that you can about each meal service that you're requesting approval for. Indicate obviously your start date, and end dates at this point are probably going to be modified at some point. At least there's the potential for that to happen. So give us end dates that you're certain of right now. If you need to change this, update, extend those end dates, that is okay. We will certainly allow that.
Yep, I can do that.
I want to remind everyone to please mute your microphone. Thank you. It's very distracting to everyone else trying to listen.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. As you extend your end dates, I want to make sure that you understand to update the total number of meal service days for each month in number 45 and number 51. For those of you doing a distribution method where you're not handing meals to children each day of the week, you might be handing a package of 3, 4, or 5 meals to them. If your meal service is intended to provide meals for 5 days of the week, we want you to mark each of those days in number 47 and 61, where you see the green box around the meal service days. We also understand that if you're doing a distribution method where you're handing out meals once a day or once a week, that the meal service times available that you could choose from in the application may not be reflective of what you're actually doing. So in 48, for example, with the breakfast meal time, you'll have to pick a time just to get the system to accept your site application. There will be an additional opportunity later in the application to provide more detailed explanation of what you're actually doing. I just want to bring to your attention that the system has to have some information there to accept your site application. And this is where you get to provide that additional information where you can share more details of your meal service or distribution method. There's a comments from sponsors section near the bottom of each site application. And the more details you provide here, the better equipped we are to be able to approve your application without delay.
I would have figured it would go through there. It'd be good.
A couple of things we want you to consider when you're operating using the distribution method, or questions we want you to be able to answer are: what food storage capabilities or space availability do households have? Would a family with 6 children be able to safely keep meals, a breakfast and lunch meal for each of those 6 children for an entire week's worth of meals? Okay. Maybe you are able to offer some shelf-stable items inside of those meals, things that would not have to be refrigerated but would still be safe to eat. Will food quality of the foods be maintained by the 5th day? Again, that probably depends somewhat on the menu items you're including in these to-go or grab-and-go meals, but it's something we want you to think about and be aware of because we do want to avoid food waste. Will those foods be safe to eat for several days after distribution? And with that in mind, should you include any food storage instructions as you're handing out the meals? We want them to know that if there are perishable food items, that they need to put them in the refrigerator as soon as possible. We want you to know that you must continue to accommodate dietary restrictions or make dietary accommodations based on medical need. You're probably all familiar with the medical statements, so continue following the recommendations found in medical statements. Excuse me, how did that happen? Yes, continue following recommendations made in medical statements, even in these different types of circumstances. Each site application is also going to ask you to report some racial and ethnic data. You'll have to gather up what your building's racial and ethnic data is, report that, and then also use information specific to your community, county, or area of the state based on the U.S. Census Quick Facts. So let's take a quick look at this resource here. I want to navigate around it just a little bit so you're somewhat familiar with how it works. If you live in a smaller community, it will not give you information specific to a small town. You may need to use your county's name. So Gage County is an example here. I search it, I navigate down to race and Hispanic origin. So these numbers here in the middle column are the ones I'm going to use to report about my geographic area in the site application. And here's what that looks like. Geographic area information is reported in number 82 and 84. So I'll go back to the US Census Quick Facts page, look at the percentage values for Hispanic and non-Hispanic and report these here, and then look at the percentage values for the racial categories and report them here. I am sorry to tell you that the report, the values given in the Census Quick Facts don't always add up to 100%. They should. The system won't accept it any other way. So it could be 80% and 20% that would be entered. That's going to equal 100 between the two. You might have to do some rounding and adjusting of those numbers just a little bit to make sure that these two in 82 add up to 100% and that these 5 in number 84 add up to 100% as well. But the US Census Quick Facts is going to give you some data, some pretty good data. You'll just need to do a little bit of rounding. For number 83 and 85, you're going to enter actual numbers of participants who belong in each category. If you have 150 students in your school, and 30 of them are Hispanic, then that would mean that 120 of them are non-Hispanic. So 150 is going to be your total. Whatever your total enrollment is, that needs to be represented in the Hispanic and non-Hispanic sections of 83. Then moving down to 85, again, you're entering numbers based on where you think the participants lie, okay? And you need to make sure all 5 of those add up to 150 or whatever your school's total enrollment is. The system is going to convert it to the percentage values based on the raw numbers you put into those boxes. Just a reminder for when you watch this later that that's how you, what the screen is that you'll see, but you also need to do a little bit of rounding and adjusting of those numbers. In the sponsor application portion of the application packet, you will need to report which person attended training. It can be one of 3 people. It doesn't have to be all 3. It could be the food service program contact. It could be the primary authorized representative. Those can be the same person, but they do not have to be. It could be a third person that's not typically identified in the site or a sponsor application, and you would put their name in number 24 and the date they completed the training, which could be today or another day when the training was watched on video from the website. You would indicate that date in 25. I want to remind you that your DUNS number is never something that you pay for. Your DUNS number does need to have been renewed in the last 12 months in order to avoid holds on claims. If your DUNS number is nearing its expiration, we encourage you to just go ahead and renew it now, and you can do that at sam.gov. The checklist summary portion of the application is also something that if you're new to the summer food service program, you'll probably have to pay a little bit of attention to. On the forms and resources and the training pages for SFSP on our nutrition services website, you will see the copy of the SFSP permanent agreement, and that is required if you are new to the summer food service program. So you'll sign the document, scan it, and then upload it in the checklist summary. don't forget to click the box that says you submitted this document to NDE. I also wanted to bring to your attention that if you are operating the closed enrolled SFSP, if you remember back to the site application where you indicated income eligibility or income applications were used to document your eligibility to operate the closed enrolled site, the system is going to ask you to submit a copy of the income eligibility form that you use. You do not need to submit a copy of that. As a school, we know that the eligibility form you're using is approved and requires all the pieces of the pieces that the USDA requires. The system will require you to check this box that says you submitted it to NDE, but you do not need to upload anything or email to us anything. We know that what you're using is okay. It's just, I don't want to say a glitch in the system, but this system is not designed specifically for the circumstances we're working with right now. So that's why we have a couple of these workarounds we need to make you aware of. You can also see that I've pointed here to the attachment list, and I want to make sure you know that in the attachment list, you should be uploading the supplementary information form for unanticipated school closures. You probably know that the second page of this form looks like this. And on that form, we're asking you to indicate where your meal service sites are and a little bit about the meal service distribution method. So this is that supporting documentation that is really important to helping not delay approval of your application for meal service. It gives us additional information we might need to report to the USDA National Office in the future and helps us best understand what your meal service operation is looking like so that we can approve it and you can go ahead and we'll be able to claim the meals that you're serving. Claims for reimbursement are submitted individually for each of the months that you're using the summer food service program to serve meals. Just like it is in the school lunch program, your claims must be submitted in accepted status no later than 60 days after the last day of the month that the meals were served. We want to make sure you know or are aware of the fact that you'll need to submit 2 separate claims for March if at the beginning of the month you were serving meals through the NSLP, your school experienced a closure or dismissal, and then you began serving meals through the SFSP. That means you're going to submit a school lunch claim and a summer food service program claim because you were serving meals in a different way or using a different program, but in the same month. Okay, so first part of the month, you're submitting a claim for those meals through the NSLP, and probably the last half or so of the month that you're serving meals using the summer food service program is going to be a separate claim. But both of those claims do need to be submitted by May 30th. As you can see here on this handy chart, the March claim must be submitted and in accepted status by May 30th. You will receive reimbursement only for the meal types that are reflected in your summer food service program application. Application submission on or, I'm sorry, I need to update this. This is going to be changed in what's posted on the website. I apologize for the error on this. If you've already begun meals using this option of non-congregate feeding and you're going to proceed using the summer food service program, you haven't yet submitted your application, we're going to honor the first day of meal service that you put into your site application. I don't want you to think that these meals you're serving now that are going on before your application is submitted are going to go on or go unreimbursed. We will be able to pay those. We want you to know that we are making every effort to approve your applications before you need to file your March claim. We're really working hard to get that done so there's no delays. So if your application is submitted on or before the first day the meals are served, obviously you'll be able to claim those for reimbursement, and even applications submitted after you've begun, as long as you're accurately reflecting in the site application your true first day of meal service, we will be able to pay the meals for those days and moving forward. I wanted to give you just a quick few little snapshots about to show you what it looks like when you go to submit your summer food service claim. At the top of the screen, you'll see claims. You'll click on that. Then claim-SFSP, you'll choose the appropriate month. here, and then you'll click the red Add Original Claim button. Click the blue words Add, and here's where you're going to report the important information from the meals you served. You're going to indicate the total days you served, the average daily attendance for those days you served meals, so the average number of students who attended a site or who you delivered meals to, along with the total first meals. I put an arrow next to second meals. That box is always going to remain 0 because we are not serving second meals through the SFSP. At least not right now. Then click the red Save button. Make sure you click through all of the pages and all of the certification boxes until you receive a confirmation code. I want to bring your attention to a couple of things you could see in claim status. Accepted is really what you're looking for. That means your claim is going to get processed and paid. Pending means you have additional work to do on your claim. You need to go back into that claim, continue clicking through all of the screens to submit it and verify that it's true and accurate until you receive that claim confirmation code. I also want you to know that the person identified as the authorized representative in the sponsor application portion of the application packet is the person who receives the email confirmation once the code is in accepted status. So don't leave thinking that something's pending and it's okay. Those will not get paid. And if those claims remain in pending status beyond the 60-day claim submission deadline, if you want to be paid for those meals, you'll have to go through the one-time exception process if you are eligible. And sponsors are eligible to use that option only once every 3 years. Let's take a quick look at the meal pattern requirements for the SFSP, as well as some supporting documentation that's required for the meals that you serve. You can choose in the SFSP to continue using the school lunch meal pattern. Obviously, there's a meal pattern specific to the SFSP. If you choose to use the school lunch pattern, we want you to know that you cannot utilize offer versus serve with grab and go meals. The SFSP meal pattern requirements are a little bit easier to meet. You aren't required to adhere to vegetable subgroups and a couple of other requirements. And SFSP may simply just be a better fit for grab and go type meals. Here's a picture, I guess, of the handout or the meal pattern chart that is available on our website in the training and in the forms and resources pages. There are not different serving sizes based on age or grade groups. Everything is a little bit simplified, and like we mentioned, that might fit your meal service operation for now a little bit better than continuing with the school lunch meal pattern. Breakfast must include all 3 components, a fluid milk, 1 fruit or 1 vegetable, or maybe some combination of the 2, as long as the minimum total quantity equals a ½ cup. And this could include juice, and then a grain or bread item. Lunch and or supper must include all 4 of the components identified on the chart here, and must include 5 items: a milk, 2 fruits, or 2 different vegetables, or 1 fruit and 1 vegetable, as long as the total combined quantity is at least 3/4 cup. So this could be a ½ cup serving of fruit and a 1/4 cup serving of vegetable. It could be 2 different fruits. It could be, a large banana and a cup of applesauce. You can't serve apple slices and applesauce, or apple juice and an apple. That would not count. Those fruits and vegetables have to be different from each other. You also are required to serve a 1-ounce serving of grain, as well as 1 meat item in a 2-ounce portion. Production records are required in summer, just like they are during the school year. It's your documentation that you provided all required components of the meal in the minimum serving sizes. This is a daily record that must be completed as meals are prepared. Can't do these the day before or the day after, right? This is a busy time. Memories aren't great, and plus that's not something that's allowed in the school lunch program either. So those rules are congruent. You must have a production record to support every meal that you claim for reimbursement. If you're doing a distribution type meal service, or you have multiple sites, or you have a central location where meals are served out, distributed out of, but you're also running some delivery routes, those are all okay. using the flexibilities that have been issued by the national office. And if all of those meals are the same, you can provide a single production record. It is up to you if you want to include additional delivery tickets for those meal service sites that might be at a park or on a delivery route. We would require different production records and or delivery tickets if the meals being served at different sites all look a little bit different. But if everyone is getting the same things and they're all prepared at the same location, a single production record to reflect exactly what was provided in the minimum quantities would be adequate for our requirements. The summer food service production record is an option for you. The templates available on the forms and resources and training pages on our website. You can make a master copy with some basic information. Gives you a little bit less to do day to day. You're going to indicate for which meal type the production record applies, and you need to make sure you write the full date at the top. You are allowed to continue using your school lunch production record. Some of the information required on that record might not necessarily pertain to meeting the meal pattern requirements of the summer food service program. But if you like that record, it's what you have on hand and you want to continue using it, that is perfectly fine. It's most important to us that you're documenting what you're serving, what those serving sizes are, and how many of them you're making. As long as that is documented somewhere on the summer or the school lunch production record, we're fine with either one of those options. The daily meal count tally sheet that you use for open sites is something that must be done separately, for each day that you're distributing or serving meals, and each meal type needs to have its own daily meal count form. It's important that this form is completed at the time of meal service or meal distribution and not before or after. Again, here's what that looks like. You saw this a few slides ago at the top of the presentation. You can make a master copy with site name at the top. You could circle the meal service type even and have that be part of your master copies. Then daily, you've got your master copies for breakfast, you've got your master copies for lunch, and you're just writing in the day or the dates for which the meals are being provided. Again, if you're offering multiple days of meals in like a single package type option for kids, then the numbers you're marking in section 2 here represent one child. Each child goes through the line or is served a meal or a meal's dropped off at their home. You're marking them as you're serving or dropping off. Each number represents a single child. The total from section 2 right here, based on the number you've marked off in this section, is going to go in letter B. The number of meals you provided in each package is going to go in letter A. And I mentioned earlier that you have to keep separate forms for breakfast and for lunch because the reimbursement amounts for each of those meals is different. And you're reporting the monthly totals for each meal type separately. You have to keep separate records for breakfast, for lunch, for snack. For whatever meals you're approved for, you've got to keep separate records, okay? So I'm giving breakfast and lunch together at the same time, and I'm offering it for 3 days. I'm giving 3 days worth of breakfasts, 3 days worth of lunches in one distribution. I'm writing those dates, March 3rd through the 25th, for example. I've got one of these sheets for breakfast, a separate sheet for lunch. I offer 3 days worth of meals. I'm putting my 3 here, right? And I served 30 kids. I'm putting 30 here. And then I'm multiplying the two numbers to know I had 90 breakfasts I served. Some students may request to receive just a lunch. It's possible that you will serve only one type of meal to some kids, and that's another reason that you need to keep separate breakfast and lunch meal counts in order to ensure that you are being most accurate and honest in the meal claims for reimbursement that you're submitting. It is not okay to draw a line through the numbers, okay? Do not mark this form before children receive meals or before meals are delivered to their homes. You must make a slash mark or a tally mark across each number. That might be each meal served. If you're doing a daily meal service, the numbers would represent each child served in the case that you're doing a distribution of several days worth of meals at once. Meals cannot be claimed for reimbursement if this meal count form is incomplete or not completed correctly or accurately. Details on this really are very important. I want to bring your attention to the fact that the total meals served down here cannot exceed the total meals available. So again, it's just a reiteration of the importance of the details and filling in all the information on the form. The total number of meals from each of your daily forms would get plugged into your claim consolidation form, okay? That's where you're going to be able to determine, or from that resource, you're going to be able to determine what the total number of meals is that should be reported in your claim. So we saw a picture of this a little while ago, just bringing it back to make sure you understand the connection between using the daily meal count sheet and where the information is drawn from that to put into your monthly claim for reimbursement. There are a few ways you cannot count meals. Your morning preparation counts can't be used as your meal count. You can't produce a meal count based on the number of meals you anticipate serving. You can't do the meal count sheet before the meals are received by the children, and you cannot use counting in your head as an accurate method to track the number of meals that you serve to children, okay? You have to count and record those meals on the appropriate meal count sheet as they are served to each child. And we talked about, no, we didn't. Serving more meals than one meal count form has means you need to add additional forms and then staple all of them together. All of the sheets you would need to record, for a single day of meal service or distribution need to be stapled together with the dates written on each form to ensure the most accurate claiming and reporting. If you're doing a delivery or drop off of meals, then the person who is in charge of making those deliveries needs to be trained on how to properly complete the meal counts, whether it's the tally sheet we would use for an open site or the meal count roster with children's names that you would use for sites that qualify to operate in the closed enrolled way. Okay, that delivery driver should mark the meal count sheet or the roster at the time the meals are dropped off for each child. I want to remind you that the child nutrition or CN label is still required in the food service program if you are serving commercially processed combination. This label gives you information on the amount of creditable meal components, and without this, you would not be able to verify that you're providing the minimum required quantity for each of the required components based on the snacks that you're allowed to serve. Just to remind you, this is what that CN label looks like, and you should look for it on the packaging of commercially processed foods. If it is not there, you can certainly reach out to the manufacturer to see if they have this information available and can send to you, because you need to retain this with your other summer food service program records. Food safety is obviously a concern during this time. We want to remind you to continue maintaining your temperature logs. Be very diligent about hand washing and sanitizing surfaces and food preparation equipment. It's recommended at this time, because the meals are served in a non-congregate fashion, that you include some sort of storage or instructions or expiration type instructions for the meals you're serving. And the instructions you provide certainly depend on the types of meals or foods you're offering in meals and for how many days you're providing meals in one distribution. As always, plan to minimize leftovers, right? If you have the food storage equipment to keep leftovers, obviously do that and then use those first at your next meal distribution or meal service day. Just make sure you're adhering to good food safety practices for those leftover foods. Let's take a quick glance at program costs before we touch on our final topic, the monitoring requirements of the program. The allowable program costs with summer meals are very similar or exactly the same as what you know to be allowable for the school lunch program. Obviously, the cost of the foods that you use for the meal service would be allowable. Any non-food supplies for meal service and some of those things you might be needing to purchase now that are different from the norm are paper or styrofoam products that are used for grab-and-go meals. The cost of those things is an allowable cost to the program. So your reimbursement money can be used to buy those things. maybe any space you might need for food service, and considering you have kind of an alternate type of meal service going now compared to your traditional school lunch program. Any meals that you serve to adult volunteers or even paid staff who are directly involved in meal preparation, meal service, meal delivery, those meals obviously are not eligible to be reimbursed, but you can use program funds to cover the cost of meals served to those adults who are helping with meal service, meal preparation, or meal delivery. Quick few questions. Foods purchases to prepare meals for children, is that allowable or not? Obviously that's allowable. That's what we're doing here, right? What about the transportation costs related to delivering meals to meal sites or on a drop-off route? That cost is allowable. Transporting meals to those, approved sites or on a meal delivery route that's approved is allowable. We want you to document the mileage, track the mileage, or the total miles that those routes are traveling each day, and then you can provide the money to cover that cost at the federal mileage rate. You must use all program reimbursement to pay for meals and staffing. Any year-end excess funds can be transferred into your school lunch account, but at this point, you're probably not keeping those things separate, and that's okay. It can all be part of your food service account. If you have extra money left over after receiving the free rate of reimbursement through the summer food service program, you are not allowed to transfer that out to any other line item or account within your school. It has to stay in the food service account. Unallowable costs include any money that was put toward meals that are prepared but not served to children. So that really underscores the importance of pretty good planning. Any meals that are served that don't meet meal pattern, either by missing a component or not meeting the minimum required quantity, there is some flexibility about meeting meal pattern. We would have to have you document the reasons for which meal pattern could not be met. And we have heard from a few schools that milk availability was very limited or wasn't available at all for a couple of days of meal service. If that happens to you, I really want to make sure you understand that you need to contact us. We'll give you the best advice and guidance that we can on how to document that and what needs to be done to ensure you can still receive reimbursement for those meals. Any meals that are served at an unapproved site or outside of the meal times you've given us in either the site application information, in the comments from sponsors section, or in that supplementary information form are not going to be able to be reimbursed. We really want you to follow the plan that you've told us you're going to follow. And if that happens to change, we understand. We just want you to let us know, and we can give you some guidance on how to adjust or revise your site application to best reflect what you're actually doing. All of the same rules that normally apply to your to procurement for the school lunch program would apply for SFSP as well. Nothing changes there. The reimbursement you receive is based on the number of meals you serve, multiplied by the sum of some administrative and operating rates, and those are a little bit different depending on a couple of factors, and we'll look at that right here. Currently, most of our sponsors are going to receive about $2.37 for breakfast and $4.15 for lunch. It would only be a sponsor in an urban area that does not prepare its own meals that would receive a little bit less. So all of our schools, I believe, would qualify for the the $2.37 per breakfast and the $4.15 per lunch. Take a quick look at the monitoring requirements of the summer food service program. You have identified a site supervisor in each of your site applications, and that person is responsible for monitoring or making sure that daily records are maintained. That would include the production records that document that all required components are offered for each meal that's claimed for reimbursement, as well as the point of service meal count, making sure it's complete and accurate, and that it's recorded as the meals are served or dropped off to each child. As of right now, it is still required that each sponsor of the SFSP complete an annual site visit. And as you can see in the bottom left corner, I've indicated to you that this is a handout that's available on the forms and resources and on the training page for SFSP. Traditionally, this visit is required to be completed in the first 4 weeks of operation. It must be done during meal service, and it's meant to help the sponsor identify and correct issues that might result in reduction in, claimable or allowable meals or reduction in reimbursement. So we are understanding that now is a very hectic time with lots of unknowns for you, but I wanted to make sure you're aware that as of right now, this requirement has not been waived by the national office. And if you get the opportunity to run through the form and answer the questions at some point during your summer food service program meal distribution or meal service time, we want to encourage you to do that. Just keep this form with the rest of your SFSP records. Part of the form's information collection includes some racial and ethnic data. You're not going to go ask each kid from which racial or ethnic group they believe they belong. You're just going to do a visual guess to determine how many of your students or recipients of the meals lie in each category. So that's just a piece of the application that a piece of the review form that I wanted to bring to your attention, and make sure you know that you don't need to overtly ask anyone. Just do a glance and make a guess. All of your meal sites should maintain or post the And Justice for All poster. I cannot be certain that all of you have the most current version of this. Even if you don't, if you have the old one, please keep it at your site through the duration of your summer food service program. For those sites that are operating using a distribution method or running a bus route or something like that, we understand that there's not a location that the students or children are visiting to eat their meal. It's non-congregate feeding, right? So my advice on this is that, while I don't have any from the national office, but to keep a copy of the poster if you have an extra, maybe on the van or the bus that's delivering the meals. But we understand that those circumstances are a little bit odd and out of the ordinary. So at a minimum, keep this posted at your school site like you typically would have. All the team members who work in the school lunch program or summer food service program should have completed some civil rights training in the last year. And I just need to make you aware of that requirement, and that our civil rights training is available at the link that you see on the slide. If you haven't done it yet, if you have the time, I would encourage you to visit it to make sure that you're in compliance with that requirement of the program. I'm sure you have questions, and if you don't now, some are going to pop up as they always do when you start a new program and work through a new set of rules. We want you to know that our team at Nutrition Services is working remotely, but we are all reachable by phone and or email, and we encourage you to contact us whenever you have questions about this program. I'll let you know now that we still have lots of questions at the state agency, and we are in almost constant contact with our regional office points of contact, asking them questions, seeking clarification on some things that are not clearly written in guidance. So we all appreciate your patience as we work through answering those questions and figuring out some of the unforeseen circumstances surrounding non-congregate feeding using this option. Listed here on the chart, on the table, are all of the team members who work in both the summer and school lunch programs, and all of us are available and very knowledgeable to help guide you and answer your questions. I wanted to bring your attention to the web page that provides all of our contact information, both email, addresses, and phone numbers. The link on that slide is going to take you to our contact information page, or you're going to click on the NSLP and SFSP specialists tab. And in that list, you're going to see each of us. If the person you're looking for, or any of these names, has NSLP and SFSP behind their name, then they would be a great resource to contact either by phone or email. And we want to encourage you again to reach out to us whenever you have questions. We may not have an immediate answer, but the questions you give to us are things that we take to the regional office, and then that gets sent up the chain to the national office and informs the decisions they're making about the waivers or flexibilities that they're willing to allow us to operate under or using. And we appreciate all of your questions and comments, and we'd much rather have you ask to seek clarification, to make sure you're operating within the program rules, ask those questions up front because we don't want to have to take money back later. So it's always best to ask rather than to guess. So with that, I have concluded the training portion with the slides, and I'm happy to answer any questions we have received from the group today. I'm going to quickly stop the recording. There we go.